I am Neil.
I'm Veronica. We fell in love when we were 16, and here we are talking about what life is all about for us. Thank you for joining us.
This is a Life Is podcast with Neil and Veronica. Hello and welcome back, everybody, to Life Is with Veronica and Neil. We wanted to kick off this new week with some fresh stories and relatable situations. So this time around, I'm actually going to throw it over to Veronica because coming off of the Christmas weekend, she actually has an idea that we're going to talk about today. Veronica?
Sure, sounds good. Thank you so much again for being here to listen to us, to hang out. It seems like we're around the half an hour mark each time, so we'll see how long this goes as well. And I just have this huge smile on my face because when we end up recording these things, there's a little bit of a countdown at the beginning. So when the countdown happens, it's like, oh my goodness, this is happening again. So here we are. Thank you again for being here. So as Neil mentioned, and you know, it's funny because we had just the episode that was called Life Is Taking Time to Reflect. So in taking time to reflect, you know, we just came off of the Christmas weekend, and I actually said to Neil, so, you know, in previous episodes, we had said, this is how it's going to work. Neil has a whole list of topics, which he's very excited to talk about. But coming off of the weekend and, you know, Christmas and all of that, I said, Neil, I have an idea for a topic. I want to talk about traditions. And so, you know, Neil said, yeah, let's do it. So here we are. So I'm making the suggestion this time. And I think that just kind of speaks to who we are as a couple a little bit too, is, you know, we just adapt and we kind of roll with things, and we've always kind of forged our own path in a sense too. So anyway, so let's start talking about tradition.
Yes,
so
please.
As I mentioned, you know, we just finished up Christmas, and I have to say, Neil and I were taking time to reflect, and this was one of the best Christmases we've had. For a lot of different reasons, you know, and I think the beauty and the gift of being able to do this podcast, as I mentioned before, is it gives us the time to connect with one another. We get to share our thoughts with you. So those of you that are listening and watching, thank you so much for hanging out with us. But it also gives us time to then take, you know, what we're saying, because I mean, truth be told, we have to listen. Well, we don't have to, but we do. We listen to and watch the podcast a couple of times, and we're like, wow, there are tidbits in there that it's nice to listen back to. So, and taking the time to reflect, and, you know, me saying, I think it was me. Anyways, somebody said in one of the last ones that the best present is being present. And I really took that to heart this Christmas. I took the time, you know, I put my phone away. I took the time to sit there, and I don't know if you noticed, so maybe you can even share some of that back too. And I just took the time to be with the kiddos and to be with you this Christmas. And, you know, that was, I think, just like such a wonderful thing. It was more calm. I felt like I had more breathing space. And I think it has to do with a lot of different variables for sure. Just even in terms of, you know, me being the healthiest me possible. And that means a lot of different things. That means physically, emotionally, mentally. But it definitely felt like a different Christmas this year. So traditions. Okay. So before we hop into that, did you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I wanted to just, go off of what you were saying about this Christmas and what I noticed, and a tradition that has evolved, right? Like from Christmases, was watching you just soak in the moment of our oldest daughter taking a recipe to bake cookies and just running with it from start to finish. So, you know, traditions for me are about evoking memories and emotions, right? So obviously, they're at the height of tradition season, which is the holidays, and they evoke the memories and emotions of Christmas and holiday past, right? And we always want to create positive ones, or I guess we want to continue to hold on to traditions and evolve traditions that elicit positive ones, and any traditions that don't serve you, positively, you don't have to hold on to. So yeah, I would definitely saw you soaking in that moment when she made a cookie recipe, and she had her, recipe out there, and she was measuring, and, maybe she asked us like, what's 1/2 again? And we're like, it's a half. But other than that, she made it all herself.
Yeah, that was amazing. So I guess if we take a minute here for those that are listening or watching, the word tradition might even, evoke feelings, memories. Like I feel like it transports you back to a memory, and you can almost, smell and hear and feel, like it's all those senses that you can transport back to. So I'm sure those that are, tuning in, they think of traditions that they hold or have held or, have just come off of. So in the cookie recipe, that's a good one. Typically every Christmas we bake a lot, and it started very young for me. So here we go with traditions is, when I was younger, I remember my mom, and this is the way that she baked. It's kind of like a funny reflection, I guess, now. And again, here I am. I feel like outing my mom on a podcast again. Sorry, Mom. I love you if you're listening. But she would like unfold newspapers on the floor, and we would cook and bake on the floor a lot. I don't know what it was. Even our kitchen table was like draped with like layers of newspapers. And I don't know if this is why I grew up also loving flyers and flipping through flyers, but it was like one of my favorite things, flipping through flyers with my dad on a Sunday. But okay, so around Christmas time, we would always bake together. I have always been like following my mom in the kitchen. I would always choose cooking or baking over anything else. And it's interesting because we see the same in our oldest daughter. So she's 8. So, transporting back, I guess, to when I would do that with my mom, here we are making like shortbread. And she's a hairdresser, so she would inherit a lot of different recipes from a lot of clients, which was kind of neat. So she was like, V, we have to try this recipe this year. We were trying to find the perfect shortbread, and it's like, softened butter and cornstarch, all this stuff. So when Neil and I started dating, because those of you that listen to, a few of the other podcasts, we were 16. And so we would spend a lot of time together. Neil mentioned he was there till like midnight all the time. And so, Neil would then become part of our new traditions of baking. And I don't know if you want me to toss it over to you for like, baking the shortbread cookies with Mom.
Sure. Okay, again, I love all these stories about us and your mom. Absolutely adore her. She's, basically a second mom to me. She's been my mom for 21 years, right? And so, and there's a funny story that goes along with our Christmas baking this year. So when I was helping out, maybe I would say this our second Christmas, because our first Christmas we were like, only 5 days in. So although I had been hanging around the house for months at that time, but I think it was the second Christmas, and I was helping out, baking the Christmas cookies, and putting them on the tray. And lo and behold, she takes one out of the oven, and she's like, Neil, you put your thumbprint in the cookies. And I was like, was oblivious, right? It was just totally like, and, I may have larger thumbs than Veronica and her mom. So, and I never really handled shortbread, let's say. My grandma always used to take care of the Christmas baking, and I would just eat it. So slightly embarrassed, slightly like, I wouldn't say mortified, but just like, really like, I felt really bad. So fast forward to Christmas of 2022, the kids were cutting out the cookies with their cookie cutters. We got them, and one of them, I don't know which shape it was, but our oldest, like, she, for whatever reason, put her thumbprint in the cookie, and she's like, hey, guys, everybody put your thumbprint in the cookies. It's gonna be our family cookie. And just like, and you and I looked at each other and just started to, like, on the inside, howl laughter, because again, that story came up. And I think Christmas baking, for the majority of people out there that are listening, is a mainstay tradition, and it's just that connection, that time together where you're doing something that you can enjoy afterwards, like when you eat, and then you just all have that, because obviously food brings people together in some capacity, right? So, you have the
Mm-hmm.
holidays, everyone's together in the kitchen, baking something. So yeah, that was a funny, like, I guess, story that happened early on, and almost recent Christmas of 2022.
Yeah, and like inheriting recipes and stuff like that too. And so we have other traditions too, like on Christmas Eve, we get the kids matching Christmas pajamas. We've done this a couple years now. We watch a movie together, and that's been really fun. And it's been interesting seeing that evolve as well. We tried to do this, I feel like a few years ago when they were younger, and I feel like they had like the Christmas meltdowns because they just couldn't stay up that late. And then, one thing that Neil and I were reflecting on though is there's definitely a lot of beauty in tradition. There's a lot of feeling and a lot of love that surrounds it. But I do think that it goes along with pressure. And sometimes there are traditions that no longer serve us that we do need to let go of. And, maybe this is like the unpopular opinion in a sense. And I think because traditions can hold so many memories that are so sentimental to many people. But for Neil and I, and this goes along with anything, to be honest, it doesn't have to do with just the tradition, but even decisions and such, that if something is no longer serving us, we just let it go. We realize we have to let it go, and we have to either find something new or, go ahead with our own decision or whatever feels right for us. And that backtracks, I think, to the moment we, started our relationship, as you mentioned, in life is having, the time to reflect. But I think it goes along with pressure, and it also goes along with taking that time to reflect and to realize, when the negative aspects of something outweigh perhaps the positive aspects of something, it's just time to reevaluate. Circumstances change, things change, like you and I moved, quite a distance away from my parents now. And so we had to start our new traditions in a sense. We tried to hold on to a few for a couple years once we did move here. And then it's all about sometimes, starting your own. Sometimes it's not possible to continue a tradition on. And sometimes there is beauty in starting something new as well. So our oldest is very sentimental. She sees, I think it's because she loves like that feeling and that memory. And she knows that there's like so much love surrounding, a lot of those traditions. And she holds on to lots of little things, even physically. Like a person, a friend will give her a gift that has a little ribbon tied onto it. And I'm talking about the curling ribbon, right? Like there is no shortage of curling ribbon. I don't know. Some of you might even be cursing curling ribbon if you get a gift with curling ribbon on it. But she's the one that kind of pulls it off the gift, and she taped it to her door. And so she sees like the sentiment and the traditions in many things. And she even asked us, I can't even pinpoint, maybe some specifics, but there were a lot of things even this Christmas that she was like, can we do this on the exact same day at the exact same time next year?
Yeah,
And we're like,
the gingerbread house. She wanted it to be every December 20th because that's the day we did it this year. And that's just her personality. She holds on, and I think that she likes to hold on to that feeling of past memories and what they bring to her, and she just wants them to be there forever. And yeah, you need to give yourself permission to let things either go or to evolve, right? And again, as you mentioned, if it doesn't serve you, your relationship or family, then you and you alone, or whoever you're making the decision with, have to be the ones okay with that.
mm-hmm. And, I've had a journey in my own mental health as well. And I think we realized like what were some things that, were not helpful for my mental health, kind of how I would react to, certain situations or time with certain people. And I think around the holidays is sometimes where you do feel maybe forced sometimes, to be with those that you might not want to spend time around or that you would choose to necessarily spend time around. And so it's interesting because a lot of people, I think, leading up to the holidays, were asking both you and I, are you ready? What are you doing? And we're kind of like, yeah, I think we're ready. Like we just kind of stick around and, my mom's going to come visit for a month, which will be lovely. But specifically around Christmas, or even other holidays, we keep it to ourselves. We've extended it to the friends that do feel like family, that do surround us, in our geographic location, which is something that's beautiful. And there are, oh my gosh, Grammar Veronica, there are friends in our circle and in our life that feel like our chosen family in a sense too. And it's about choices, I think. And I think the whole thing in that is, we have holidays, right? It's supposed to be time for us. And, and this is, again, to each their own. And I think this is the whole thing about our podcast is everyone's life is their own. Every decision is their own, right? To each their own. And everyone has different reasons for everything. And that's not for us to judge any of you. Our situation is our own as well. Yeah. And so, I think, anyways, that was really neat that so she baked cookies from start to finish. Yeah. That was really cool. And even like helping out with the meal this year, she was, doing everything.
Every year using more and more as she grows older and the other two are growing older and participating in more and more of the traditions of what Christmas and that time together is, right? Because there is a lot of time together where we're not working and they're not in school and we just have the space and time to do more things than on a normal weekend, right? Activities slow down, and that gives this time and space, like I said. So, I think you talked about choices and choosing what serves you and your family and your relationship, and that made me think of the choice we made when our oldest daughter, who has a birthday later in November, when we start to decorate for Christmas. Because if it was up to you and I, what we always had as a tradition was November 12th, tree goes up, decorate the house, Christmas music is playing, we're in the holiday spirit right up until beginning of January before we always go back to work. And then our youngest is born at the end of December. Okay, so what does that mean for us? Because birthdays are also very important to us, right? That's a very big thing in our family that, we've traditionally now started to celebrate every year. We have our seasons of the birthdays, 5 straight months that I'm sure we'll talk about. But, we had to adjust our tradition of when we celebrated and started Christmas. And I think it was you actually who initiated the conversation with our oldest about, okay, so when do you want to decorate for Christmas? Is it before your birthday or is it after? And, when she wasn't old enough to realize, we still waited for her birthday, right? But every year so far, she's chosen to have her birthday. And then we decorate for Christmas, which just, gives us 2 weeks of Christmas trees. So it's like it feels like a condensed version. I don't know about how your feeling is, but it just feels like it's not as long and drawn out. It's like Christmas is here, turn on the music, do all the fun stuff. And so, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that choice that we made.
Well, I was laughing, first of all, because you did mention the season of the birthdays. It's a term that we use around here because we have straight birthdays in our family from September to January. But I laughed because you said 5 straight months. And I was like, that was really fast math. And then I laughed because I'm like, oh my goodness, there's 5 people in our family, Veronica. So those that are listening or watching, you'll be like, yep, there's Veronica with her standard math again. So totally aside. But so that was definitely something that, we started. We were very intentional about, And I kind of hope on the inside some years that she says, yeah, I'd love to decorate, inside, because there's the decorating inside, there's decorating outside, and we kind of give her that choice, and that's okay, and we adapt. And I did mention that, I can't remember if I mentioned it in a previous podcast or, just even in a conversation, but the taking the pressure off. I think we said this again, in relation to traditions, but I kept thinking in my head, like, we're late. And then I made a conscious choice at one point to just, again, breathe and say, we're like, by whose standards are we late? Right? Okay. Yes. In previous years, as Neil mentioned, when it was just the two of us as well, sure, we'd put up the tree, November 12th. This year we ended up waiting. I can't remember the exact date. I bet you Neil will know. Neil's very good with dates. If you haven't noticed, he's very good with dates and like exact times. But I feel like sometimes like those kind of escape my memory. But all to say, we put up our tree, and I had said, and I didn't want the kids to hear me say we're late. I didn't want them to think but why? Like, why? What do you mean we're late? We're just decorating the tree, is like kind of how they took it. What was really neat in that situation, though, is we ended up decorating. So we had no snow prior to this. And then we said, okay, we're going to pick this date. We're going to decorate our tree.
December 10th.
Neil comes home. There it is. So December 10th. I love that you know that. You're so awesome with that. So Neil goes out to get a tree. And again, this is something that we shifted from too, is we said we always wanted to get a real tree, the two of us and into our family. I grew up with an artificial one, which there's nothing wrong with either choice, but we wanted to start getting a real tree.
I think it's because we never had one though, right? Like you and I both were like, we want one, let's do it. So we started it.
Yeah, we're going to start. And, I think one year we tried to cut down. No, I don't even think we tried to cut down our own yet. We said we wanted to do that when the kids get a bit older. So again, we're going to adapt our tradition when that time comes. So Neil brings home the tree, which he picks up from like the local grocery store, I think, or something. I can't remember. Where did you go?
So there was a lot here that was a local farm that has a space in one of the parking lots. Oh, so it is local tree farm. So it was really nice. And our oldest came with me, and she was in charge of picking which one we were getting, because it's a quick process for us right now. We just need to get something quickly into the house. But yeah.
And I think there's a little sentiment in that too of, sometimes letting go, like taking a breath and letting things go. And like, there was so much meaning in her just picking it. If I was with you, would I have picked a bigger one, a taller one? Who knows? But I like, sometimes that we give the kiddos like this opportunity to just pick something, make it meaningful for them. And it is what it is. And it carries a lot of meaning. So Neil and our oldest bring home the tree, and we're starting to, put the lights on and everything. And the moment we plug the lights in, I kid you not, I know it sounds a little woo-woo or whatever, but like we plug in the lights and snow starts falling. And it was so magical. And I was just thinking like, I love that we chose this date. We felt like it was late, but as soon as we plugged it in, we felt like there was so much Christmas magic that happened. But definitely I was joking with some of my friends that I feel like I wish there was like that pop-up tree. Like, you can get a pop-up tent. Like, I wish that there was a bit of a pop-up tree that we
They have those now, but it's not the same.
Do they really?
Yeah, it's like an electronic tree that just like comes out of a base. And it's like almost looks like a pyramid, right? Where it's just like it goes smaller to the top, and then it has like the electronic lights.
Oh my goodness.
They're there.
So yeah, so we were decorating it, and yes, I mean, so we're recording this a few days after Christmas, and we're going to take the tree down. Actually, I think tomorrow. We talked about that. But we're going to take the tree down like before our youngest's birthday because she's at the end of December. I lost my train of thought, what I was going to say, which is like so standard.
Okay. Well, what I think you're just getting at is, again, when that sign, the world like syncs up with our family to show us that like there is no right or wrong date. There is no early. There is no you're behind. Whatever time works for you, whatever tradition you want is okay. And I think honestly, I know you and I believe in signs, and that was just a sign to me that we were like, when are we getting it? When are we getting it? And we
Mm-hmm.
got it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's it.
So for those of you that are watching can see my facial expressions. Maybe those of you listening can hear. Sometimes when Neil and I talk at the same time, the audio doesn't pick up properly, but I had like this like mouth open, like aha moment. And it was something. So, I feel like privilege and opportunity to be obviously in the same home as Neil. And I hear a lot of wisdom that isn't always recorded in these podcasts. And this is another reason why we really wanted to do this. This is a big goal of Neil. So thank you for listening and being here and supporting that. There's so much wisdom I feel like that you get to share with me that I want everyone else to hear. And when you said, it was kind of just like a sign, and it's finding meaning, whatever you need, right? That's the same thing with me with quotes. Find whatever you need to latch onto in order to help you through those moments or those thoughts or whatever that is. And so you had just said something just now about not feeling behind. And I think it's so easy, especially, in Life is Taking a Moment to Reflect. You said, do not compare your chapter 2 or 3 to someone else's chapter 20. That was another aha moment for me. And I love that. I often am the one that's saying, like, when flowers bloom, they just bloom. They don't look to each side. And like, it's not a comparison thing. And comparison, that is a whole other podcast, I think. Neil's nodding. But it's so easy. Like, why do we feel so much pressure to feel behind? So there was something that you shared with me. I don't know if you know what I'm getting at. Do you know what I'm getting at that you had shared with me about like the 2 days?
Yeah, I thought we were going to, but I just wanted to confirm. Okay, so, again, the present of being present was, I guess, ended up being our main theme of the holidays, right? So I came across, some wisdom over the last few months. I don't know exactly where I had heard it, but it really stuck with me because it can apply to anything and everything, even when it comes to traditions and holidays or just everyday life. So there are 2 days in everybody's life that you can't do anything about. And that's yesterday and tomorrow. So all you have is today. So with that, like, mindset, right? It's almost like you have to start your day off with that sometimes to set the tone for your day, to just, again, be where you are and be present and enjoy the moment, especially in the holidays, right? So I'm really glad we had the opportunity to do that this holiday season. And is there anything else that you can think of or that you had that you wanted to share before we wrap up this episode on Life is About Traditions?
I just love, like, that stuck with me too when you shared that. And again, it went from Post-it notes to like tattoos of quotes and things like that. But I think that was a big difference for me this Christmas. And I think it's about baby steps. It's about, being able to make those tiny steps and tiny changes, as small or as big as you want, in a sense, too, whatever is manageable for you, in order to make whatever changes you do want to make. So for me, it was about, really focusing on like, okay, the present of presents, like that is my tagline for this Christmas. And it made a huge difference for me personally. And I think it did have an impact on our family because, because our youngest daughter, her birthday's coming up at the end of December, I often, my thoughts in my mind are like, tomorrow, 5 days from now, 7 days from now, 30 days from now, let's talk about January 2023. Like, it's so easy to think about those things. And then, for example, like our middle son, like sometimes there's moments where he's calling my name like 10 times in a row. And I only heard him the last time because my thoughts are so wrapped up in, trying to think of things. And I mean, granted, I am usually thinking about things for them. I mean, no guilt if you're thinking of things for yourself. That's a good thing too. But I think I'm going to use that. I'm going to, learn from what has happened this past weekend. And it did have such a positive effect on me and our family. And I hope that you felt that too, and being more present with you, and just moving that going forward.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would echo that and say that I am very proud proud of you, because you did put that out there. You did accomplish that, because there have been holiday seasons past when we were still taking steps in our journey, and we were thinking about, okay, well, Christmas is tomorrow, but what about like our youngest's birthday party? What about our oldest, like going back to all those little things? And you didn't have that because you've come in your journey so far to be able to be so present. And again, we felt that as a family come shining through. So you should be proud of yourself, because I'm proud of you.
Thank you. And it's nice to, make new traditions together, carry some on. And I'd be curious for anyone listening or watching, like, what is your favorite tradition and what do you love? I love learning about others too. And I think sometimes we take those bits and pieces that, are so beautiful that we can like continue on, and make new traditions. And it's about, sometimes being open to that too. And I'm really looking forward to it. Like, our oldest daughter is already planning. It's already planning next Christmas. So yeah, there's so many traditions for so many beautiful reasons. So we hope that you had a wonderful holiday, a wonderful Christmas if you do celebrate, and that those traditions carry you through into 2023.
Yes, absolutely. So again, thank you to this community. Thank you to everyone who has listened before, or if this is your first time listening. We see everyone that's following, watching, subscribing, even rating and reviewing. That makes us feel so energetic, and so, knowing that we're doing the right thing for us and this community. So if you felt anything that, evoked those feelings, we hope that you can share that with those people in your life. And we look forward to talking with you again later on. Thanks, everybody.